Over on my main channel, I gave praise to MSNBC host Joe Scarborough for saying it's time that we do everything we can to support the president. We need him to succeed, and I have tremendous respect for that. Dana Bash as well. I said, we want to reduce the partisan bickering, but there's still some territory where we got to call out people for saying crazy things. And we have this story from the Daily Caller. MSNBC analyst suggests using coronavirus to prosecute Trump for negligent homicide, gets an assist from former Democratic candidate. No. Come on, man. You guys are doing so well talking about the serious crisis we're facing. Now is not the time to go nuts with your scandal, insane conspiracy rhetoric. No one's going to prosecute the president for negligent homicide because people are getting sick. You all need to calm down a little bit and follow in the footsteps of Joe Scarborough, who I will absolutely give respect to for saying now is not the time. But let's read this story and see what's going on and what this guy had to say. MSNBC analyst Glenn Kirshner suggested Tuesday that he would attempt to prosecute President Donald Trump for negligent homicide over his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Kirshner laid out his explanation in a series of tweets, first claiming that the president may have criminal exposure for some level of negligent homicide or involuntary manslaughter for the way he's mishandled the coronavirus. He went on to tout his own career as a prosecutor, saying that he had always been on the lookout for novel ways to apply homicide liability in an attempt to appropriately and ethically hold accountable those who are responsible for taking the life of a fellow human being. No, what we're seeing here is a guy who is just desperate to figure out a way to get retweets and clicks. So he's making up absurd nonsense that in no version of reality would ever happen. It's like the guy, it wouldn't even happen in a movie. That would be an absurd movie plot line, let alone real life. Kirshner concluded, by accusing Trump of grossly negligent and or possibly intentional mishandling of the response to coronavirus and claiming the issue was thorny and nuanced, but that all possible criminal charges will have to be investigated. No, you're nuts. No one's going to do that. So here's what he said. Hey, all. Can we talk about one of the few topics I may actually know too much about homicide? Specifically, whether Donald Trump may have criminal exposure for some level of negligent homicide or involuntary manslaughter for the way he's mishandled the coronavirus. What about, I got to stop you right there, buddy. If the president, ordered an assassination via drone and it killed a 16-year-old American, would that constitute negligent homicide? Because I got a president for you, if you're interested. His name is Barack Obama. And for those that aren't familiar, yes, he ordered a drone strike, which resulted in the death of an American citizen named Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki. It is it was a mistake, they said. I'll put it that way. That's what they said. Oopsie. We were looking for somebody else. Killed an American kid. What are you going to do about it? Did this guy come out and shriek that Obama must be stopped at all? No, of course. They don't care. So here's what he says. I spent 22 of my 30 years as a federal prosecutor handling murder cases in D.C. I served as chief of the homicide section of the D.C.'s U.S. Attorney's Office overseeing murder prosecutions. I was always on the lookout for novel ways to apply homicide liability. So he's actually getting a ton of likes and retweets on these, mind you. So we read all that part. Here's what he says. I think it's fair to observe that there's nothing more devastating to a family than losing a loved one to either violent crime or to an illness that could have been prevented or mitigated. I'm trying to assimilate all available evidence, rapidly developing and being reported every day, to fairly assess whether Trump and his administration may have acted or failed to act in a way that could give rise to homicide liability. Oh, it is just so stupid, so dumb. And people eat this stuff up. You leave me speechless. This is not an easy question. Further, whereas the evidence is clear that Trump has committed multiple criminal offenses, both before his tenure as president, campaign finance crimes, and during his time as president, obstruction of justice, bribery, and extortion. Oh, my brain just exploded in my head. This is the kind of fringe conspiracy psychosis these people actually believe. I believe Trump extorted someone, yet no one could prove it and he couldn't be prosecuted for it. But he's obstructed justice, yet Mueller said he could not make a determination on obstruction of justice. He says, he goes on to say, and obstruction of justice, bribery, extortion, homicide liability by his grossly negligent and or possibly intentional mishandling of the coronavirus in the U.S. is a more nuanced and thorny issue and deserves careful consideration. But the homicide liability issue must be addressed because all criminal charges will have to be investigated, and if the evidence dictates it, prosecuted come January 2021. Stay tuned, he says. Shortly after Kirshner posted the tweets, he got a response from Mark Judson, a Democratic candidate for North Carolina's 7th Congressional District, until he lost the primary on Super Tuesday. Judson, a CPA, crunched the numbers for Kirshner. The calculation looks basically like this. The number infected would also increase as a result of Trump, in addition to the fatality rate. But this is the best case template, in my honest opinion. Americans infected, 165 million. Expected fatality rate before Trump, 1.5. Actual fatality rate for what are these numbers? These are not even the numbers that were given by experts. Experts said 100 up to 150, so you're over the top. And the mortality rate could be between 1 and 3, not 1.5 and 4. Deaths directly attributable to Trump. This is so ridiculous. He's actually got on the screen an image. 4 million dead. We charge Trump and he put a star next to it. What does that even mean? And culpable members of administration for these deaths. These people are out of their minds. And why are they being put on TV? Come on, man. Now is not the time for this lunacy. I know you got beef with the president. That's fine. You criticize everybody. It's fine. Now, here's what's really happening. The White House coronavirus plan aims to send $2,000 to many Americans. It includes $300 billion for small businesses. Talks remain fluid, but discussions with Congress are intensifying as virus fallout worsens. They're acting like Trump is literally responsible for an act of nature, an act of God. And I don't mean like the Lord literally striking people down. I'm saying it's nature, man. Viruses happen. We can put some blame on China for hiding the information from everybody, probably still hiding information, kicking out our journalists. But we're going to have to deal with this, and it's no one's fault. And it's not Trump's fault. And I was thinking about why is it that so many people are so quick to assume Trump is awful? And I think it's because they operate under the assumption that there would be someone there doing a better job. And I don't. When I look at the president, I have nothing to compare it to. I'm a rather science-oriented individual in a sense. Give me the comparison to prove it, and I'll consider what you're saying. But we don't have a controlled president. We just have Trump. And we have people saying he's doing an awful job. Yeah, well, in some regards, I think you criticize him. But what am I supposed to compare him to? A bunch of other presidents who have done similar things? You're not really giving me anything to work off of here. So no, when you say Orange Man bad, I'm like, compared to what? The dude who literally sent a drone to blow up a 16-year-old kid and no one cared? Sorry, not buying it. I can be critical of him for my own reasons. But in reality, Trump is working hard, along with his administration, to do whatever they can. And if you don't like it, come November, you vote. You don't screech on the internet about how you're going to prosecute the president. That's never going to happen, man. Go back to your video game fictional reality where no one else is hanging out. What Trump is actually doing is working on a stimulus package. And it's going to get two checks for $1,000. I almost said 100, almost said 1,000. And devote $300 billion towards helping small businesses. Now, I want to point out, I do not like the idea of giving loans to small businesses. They should be grants. If these businesses are in debt now because their supply is expired or, it's gone bad, maybe it's like I'm talking about the bars and the restaurants, you give them a loan. That's awful, man. Like, I don't know what the answers are. I know we can't just necessarily give money away because the money that they're being sent to everybody, the stimulus, it's basically we're borrowing from ourselves in the future. This is going to result in inflation. This is how it works. But it can help stimulate the economy. That's why it's called a stimulus. Now, they have said no final decisions have been made and talks with Republican leaders remain fluid, but the growing scale of the $1 trillion rescue plan is coming into sharper focus. The Treasury Department is circulating a 2-page sheet of priorities that it wants to see in the final deal. As part of it, the White House seeks to create a $50 billion airline industry secured lending facility that would allow it to make direct loans to U.S. passengers and cargo air carriers. White House officials have scrambled in recent days to assemble a massive rescue plan. That's the sentence I wanted to read to you. You've got these people who live in a fantasy world where Trump is like a supervillain who took over. He's Lex Luthor to these people. I don't live in that fantasy world. Sorry. It looks like the White House, the officials, Trump, they're doing the best they can as fast as they can. And they're also acting like Trump's downplaying of the virus was an intentional thing for self-gain. I don't know that. And you didn't prove that to me. And maybe you can't. I don't know. You can assume whatever you want. But I also know that if Trump came out right away and said this is a serious thing, we got to act now, they'd accuse him of sparking a panic for no reason. they would then blame him for the market hits. For the time being, the White House is working on a stimulus package. It looks like we're about to get it. It could see a ton of people getting money, and it's going to scale. People who make a certain amount will not get any money. Businesses will be eligible for loans. I think they need to do better on that one. But it looks like most people are going to get around $2,000. That's not enough either. Look, man, I don't know what you do. I don't know what the answers are. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I do know that $1,000 ain't going to cover somebody's monthly expenses. So it might help. Maybe they're already on unemployment insurance. Maybe it'll stimulate the economy. I honestly don't know. But I'm not going to act like Trump should go to prison for not moving faster when he's already invoked the Defense Production Act, and now he's planning on giving people a bunch of money to stimulate the economy. Y'all need to calm down. It's about time we listen to Joe Scarborough of MSNBC, of all people, and do what we can to support the president to make sure he succeeds. Then in a few months, when we're all clear of the coronavirus stuff, we can go back to screeching at each other at the top of our lungs. Stick around. I got a couple more segments coming up for you in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.